Our universe is infinite, with countless planets scattered throughout. It's hard to believe that Earth is the only planet with life, and that we, humans, are the only intelligent beings. If you still don't believe in extraterrestrial life, I recommend watching this video where I've gathered the most irrefutable evidence of their existence. Enjoy the watch. In 1950, Italian physicist Enrico Fermi, during a conversation with his colleagues, posed the question, "Are we alone in the universe?" With modern technologies, we have learned to receive signals from space, even from distances of several tens of billions of light years. Within this range, there are plenty of planets potentially suitable for life. But then, why has no extraterrestrial civilization started interacting with humans? This is precisely what interested Fermi. The physicist was not a skeptic about the existence of extraterrestrial civilizations. On the contrary, he was trying to understand why this was the case. Several hypotheses exist on this matter. According to the so-called zoo hypothesis, we are stuck in some celestial cage, and other intelligent beings are simply observing us. This notion is somewhat similar to another theory that suggests aliens are just waiting for the right moment to take over our planet. More plausible is the hypothesis of Earth's uniqueness. According to it, the chance of higher life forms originating on planets in other galaxies is extremely low since supernovae frequently erupt there, emitting massive amounts of radiation. However, our Milky Way galaxy is unique. It has a nearly perfect circular shape with a radius that allows it to move at the speed of gravitational shock waves. Therefore, we are still safe for now. The Fermi hypothesis essentially poses a philosophical question, which one can ponder for a very long time. Area 51 has been known since the times of World War II. Back then, it served as a military training ground. In 1951, it was decided to create a CIA base on Area 51 territory, and since then, it has become a classified location. The US government concealed its existence for a long time, but in 2013, the authorities reluctantly acknowledged it. Thus, the place has become the subject of many conspiracy theories, including contacts with extraterrestrials. According to some declassified information, Area 51 was intended for observing various flying objects, including unidentified ones. It was also used for the development and testing of cutting-edge fighter jets. Some employees anonymously reported that on radar screens, they have repeatedly seen multiple UFOs circling the secret base, and then, as if on command, hovering in the air. A former Area 51 engineer, Boyd Bushman, recorded a deathbed video in which he claimed that the military has long had contact with extraterrestrial civilizations originating from the planet Quintumnia. Believing these stories or not, of course, is up to each individual. One of the popular subjects of conspiracy theory is an artificial Earth satellite known as the Black Knight. According to this theory, the Black Knight has been orbiting our planet for 13,000 years, rotating in the opposite direction to Earth. The story of the unidentified object began in the late 19th century when Nikola Tesla managed to capture a signal from space. Tesla believed in extraterrestrial intelligence and therefore assumed that the signal came from an alien probe. In the early 20th century, many scientists began to capture similar signals. According to their hypotheses, the source was the same satellite. These observations increased interest in the mysterious Black Knight. In 1998, using the American space shuttle Endeavour, images of the enigmatic object were finally captured. According to the conspiracy theory, the probe was sent to observe our planet by an unknown extraterrestrial civilization. And when people saw the real images of the Black Knight, no one denied its existence any longer. In March 2017, a video of the destruction of the Black Knight appeared online. So we will never know what this unidentified object actually was and where it came from. In 1952, several mysterious events occurred in Washington, D.C., which remain unexplained to this day. Over the course of more than a week, people reported seeing multiple unidentified objects in the sky. It all started on the night of July 20th. Radar at the Washington airport detected 7 flying objects located 25 kilometers from Washington. Airport staff noticed that the suspicious objects had atypical trajectories and reported it to the U.S. Air Force Base. A few hours later, glowing UFOs were already hovering over the U.S. Capitol building and the White House. The Air Force reacted promptly and sent fighter jets towards the suspicious objects. But as soon as the military planes approached them, they instantly moved away. The pilots were ordered to return to base, and as soon as they did, the UFOs returned to the same location. The residents of Washington were bewildered and frightened. Letters and calls from citizens seeking answers started pouring into the Air Force headquarters. Neither the authorities nor the military could provide answers and only urged the public to remain calm. Efforts were made to destroy these strange objects, thinking they might be Soviet reconnaissance aircraft, but all attempts were unsuccessful. Eventually, on July 26th, one of the patrolling pilots, William Patterson, decided to get as close as possible to the UFOs again. Afterward, the flying objects first surrounded him and then disappeared, as if they had never existed. The Washington Carousel, along with the Roswell incident, remains one of the most mysterious events in U.S. history. On August 15, 1977, while working on a radio telescope, Dr. Jerry Amon discovered a strong narrowband radio signal. The uniqueness of the signal lay in its actual characteristics matching the theoretical ones. When Amon noticed this, he circled the relevant group of symbols and wrote, "Wow," hence the signal got its original name. Each symbol in the code represented the signal intensity over a 12-second period. Normally, this value did not exceed the number 3. To save space on the sheet containing the code, numbers were encoded into letters. The letter U in the code appeared only once, in that very "wow" signal. Seeing the unusual signal code with values 6 EQWJ5, Amon realized he had witnessed a sensational event. The signal-to-noise ratio and the transmission bandwidth were almost identical to the Earth's reserved value, the signal with a frequency of about 1,420 MHz at a wavelength of 21 cm. Such characteristics are subject to minimal natural interference and can only be used for interstellar signals. Could this mean that someone from extraterrestrial civilizations was sending us a signal? Skeptics refute this theory, suggesting that the signal originated from 2 comets in the Sagittarius constellation, whose transit just happened to be in August 1977. However, neither of them was in the telescope's field of view at that moment. The Drake equation is one of the solutions to Fermi's paradox, which I mentioned earlier. In the 1960s, astronomers were keen on finding answers to the question, is there anyone else in this universe? And if so, why don't we know about it? Undoubtedly, this topic is still relevant today, but back then, scientists were seriously focused on it. American astronomy and astrophysics professor Frank Donald Drake was no exception, and also tried to understand this question. Thus, the world learned about the Drake equation. The equation is a formula designed to calculate the potential number of extraterrestrial civilizations in our galaxy, as well as to determine the chance of communicating with them. Drake included 8 variables in his formula, one of which is unknown. That is, the variable representing that very number of extraterrestrial civilizations. Without diving into each variable's definition, it's much more interesting to find out how Drake solved his own equation. So the professor took the known variables, and plugging them into the equation, got the number 10. In other words, theoretically, there could be 10 advanced civilizations in our entire galaxy. Shocking, isn't it? However, now scientists can perform more accurate calculations, and it turned out that the values of some variables used by Drake himself were incorrect. With modern knowledge, the equation's result today is 0.00637. This means that there are no advanced civilizations in the Milky Way galaxy at all, but we exist. Therefore, scientists believe that the Drake equation, unfortunately, does not work. In the spring of 2022, During U.S. congressional hearings, authorities, military, and scientists revealed statistics on UFO sightings. It seemed as if they officially acknowledged the existence of extraterrestrial civilizations, but all their speeches were rather vague. It was revealed during these hearings that from 2004 to 2021, 400 instances of unidentified flying objects were observed, and only 18 of them truly deserved close attention. The military perceived a potential threat in these objects due to their unusual trajectory and speed changes. Despite this, Pentagon representatives immediately adjusted their statements, suggesting that most of these UFOs could be drones or even birds. It's worth noting that these were the first hearings on the subject of UFOs in 50 years. Perhaps this was a subtle way to warn us of a new arrival of extraterrestrial civilizations. The incident that occurred in 1947, near the town of Roswell in New Mexico, has become one of the most mysterious stories in America. It all started after a local farmer heard a bang, followed by a bright flash. He mistook the occurrence for a thunderstorm. The next morning, the man went to look for his sheep, who had scattered due to the noise. Not far from his property, he found many fragments of unknown origin. At first, the farmer thought they were parts of a U.S. Air Force fighter jet, but upon closer inspection, he decided to inform the sheriff. Colonel William Blanchard of the Air Force arrived at the scene. After confiscating the fragments, he and his colleagues began to identify the object. A few days later, newspapers published his statement that an unidentified flying disc had been found near Roswell. The news about this incident spread quickly and became one of the most discussed topics in the United States and Europe. However, a day later, General Roger Mason Ramey refuted the statement, saying that the object was merely a crashed weather balloon. To prove his point, Ramey showed the fragments to journalists and allowed them to examine them closely. The story became even more mysterious after Major Jesse Marcel, the head of intelligence for the 509th Air Regiment, revealed in an interview in the late 1970s that Ramey had deceived the public and had shown the media a fake, while the real fragments were kept highly classified. So it appears that the military had something to hide. But what was the fallen object if not a weather balloon? The video recording of an incident that occurred on August 15, 1950, is considered to be one of the first documented UFO sightings. On that day, the general manager of the Great Falls Electric's baseball team, Nick Mariana, along with his assistant, went to inspect the stadium before a game. Suddenly, his attention was caught by two glowing objects flying through the sky, one following the other. According to him, they moved at a speed of around 600 kilometers per hour, and their length was about 15 meters. Upon seeing this unusual phenomenon, Mariana rushed to get his video camera. He managed to capture a 16-second video that clearly shows both objects. A few days after the incident, Mariana reported it to local newspapers. He also shared the story with his colleagues and showed them the resulting film. The United States Air Force became interested in the unusual story. In October of the same year, Captain John Brynildson interviewed Mariana's assistant and also requested the original film for analysis. After analyzing the film, the Air Force stated that they saw nothing unusual and that the two strange objects were likely fighter jets. Soon after this, Mariana reached out to journalists, claiming that part of the film had gone missing. According to him, the Air Force had stolen the first part, which recorded the first few seconds of the incident. It was precisely in those moments that it was clear that the objects had an entirely different shape than fighter jets. The military vehemently denied the loss of the film and refused to give any comments. But if Mariana was telling the truth, and if the footage indeed showed fighter jets, why would the Air Force cut off part of the film? In 2017, Hawaiian scientists made a sensational discovery: a strange, cigar-shaped space object. The object was named Oumuamua, which translates from Hawaiian as the first messenger arriving from afar. The name was aptly chosen, as Oumuamua is truly unique. Its length is approximately 180 meters, its width is about 30 meters, and its diameter is around 160 meters. It has a cigar-like shape. Typically, asteroids have proportional shapes, closer to oval or round. It's unusual for celestial bodies to have such a large difference in proportions. Moreover, asteroids usually have straightforward orbits. They all move around the sun in the same direction as the planets. Their orbits are almost circular and have a slight inclination. Unlike asteroids, Oumuamua had a hyperbolic trajectory. Scientists noticed how this object would speed up, then slow down, and even hover in the air. It was also rotating on its axis and literally tumbling through space. Initially, scientists thought Oumuamua was a comet, but it had neither a tail nor a core. They then declared the object to be the first hyperbolic interstellar asteroid from another solar system. These facts about Oumuamua contradict scientists' claims. Therefore, ufologists believe that the object is an alien spacecraft. On June 24, 1947, American businessman Kenneth Arnold was flying his plane from Chehalis to Yakima. The weather that day was clear and sunny. Therefore, Arnold decided to spend some extra time in the sky looking for the wreckage of a U.S. Marine Corps transport plane near the Cascade Mountains. A reward had been offered for the coordinates of the crashed plane, and the businessman did not want to miss the opportunity to make money. Unfortunately, he was unable to find any wreckage. However, he did witness an anomalous phenomenon, which to this day is considered evidence of the existence of extraterrestrial races. Returning to Yakima, Arnold told his pilot friend Alan Baxter about the incident. According to him, over the Cascade Mountains he saw a bright flash, followed by 9 glowing objects, moving one after the other in a southeast direction. Their shape reminded Arnold of saucers or plates. Arnold and Baxter decided to report the incident to the FBI and quickly gave an interview to journalists from the Chicago Sun newspaper. The very next day, the newspaper was filled with headlines about flying saucers, and the published story caused a public uproar. Incidentally, it was because of this case that UFOs also became known as flying saucers. On September 19, 1961, Barney and Betty Hill were returning from vacation in their car. As they drove along a deserted country road near the White Mountains of New Hampshire, Betty noticed a strange glowing point in the sky that was becoming brighter and larger. The couple continued on their way, and the suspicious object seemed to follow them. Betty asked her husband to stop the car so that they could examine what was happening in the sky. Barney obliged. When Betty looked through binoculars, she realized that she was seeing what is commonly known as a flying saucer, a flat, indeed saucer-like spacecraft with multiple windows. For a moment, she even thought she saw several humanoids looking at her from those windows. Betty encouraged Barney to also look through the binoculars. However, Barney reassured her, saying it was just an airplane. Afterward, the couple continued on their journey but soon heard strange clicking and buzzing sounds. At that point, their consciousness seemed to cut off. When Betty and Barney regained awareness, they realized they couldn't remember anything that had occurred in the last couple of hours. For a long time after the incident, the couple suffered from migraines, nightmares, and even hallucinations. They decided to seek help from psychiatrist Benjamin Simon. After hearing their story, the doctor suggested a session of regressive hypnosis. Thanks to this, Betty and Barney managed to remember the terrifying details of those events. It turns out that extraterrestrials had taken control of their minds and led them into their spacecraft, where samples of the victim's skin and hair were taken. This story makes us ponder the question: what if extraterrestrial civilizations have long been in contact with many people on the planet, but forever erase these encounters from their memory? One of the most famous UFO photos was taken on May 11, 1950, near the town of MCMINNVILLE, Oregon. On that day, Evelyn Trent was returning to her farm when she noticed a strange disc-shaped metallic object slowly moving across the sky. Frightened, she called her husband. When her husband Paul came out of the house and also saw the suspicious flying object, he rushed to grab a camera. Paul managed to take 2 truly unique photos. After developing the pictures, Paul showed them to his friend, a banker named Frank Wertman. Wertman was impressed by the photos and displayed them in the windows of his bank. A reporter named Bill Powell saw them and asked for the negatives to verify their authenticity. Astonishingly, the photos were genuine, with no manipulations. Very soon, a local newspaper published an article featuring the 2 photos taken by Paul. The story caught the attention of the International News Service. Thus, the images quickly spread not only across the country, but also internationally. It's worth noting that throughout all this time, Paul and Evelyn received no compensation for the use of their photos. These people weren't seeking fame or money. They simply wanted to capture what they saw for posterity. Gordon Cooper is a well-known American astronaut who has participated in many space exploration programs. Cooper was a respected man, so people trusted his words. However, his repeated claims about the real existence of UFOs shocked the public. In his interviews, the astronaut talked about personally seeing flying saucers. He also accused the US government of hiding information about this phenomenon from ordinary citizens. In the early 1950s, while flying fighter jets in Germany, Cooper and his co-pilot repeatedly saw strange light disks of extraterrestrial origin. He observed their flight paths and noted that they were unpredictable. The speed of these objects was fantastic, and in some cases, many smaller disks would emerge from the larger ones. Cooper told journalists that in the middle of World War II, the US authorities conducted extensive programs to study the UFO phenomenon. However, later, under pressure from the government, scientists began to deny any information about the existence of extraterrestrial civilizations. This was done to maintain calm among ordinary people who might be shocked by the truth. According to the astronaut, there is some sort of agreement between extraterrestrials and the government to gradually prepare Earth's inhabitants for official information that there are other intelligent beings in the universe. These statements sound plausible, and perhaps in the near future, we will be openly told about the existence of aliens. In 1948, U.S. Air Force General Nathan Twining developed Project Sign with the goal of investigating unidentified flying objects. Participants in the project gathered a wealth of information from eyewitnesses, evaluated it, and provided it to the government. Initially, Americans suspected that the glowing discs could be Soviet secret weapons. It soon became clear, however, that these objects had nothing to do with the Soviet Union. The project was declassified in 1985. The information stored in key documents was shocking. It turns out that flying saucers are real. Moreover, they are likely intergalactic ships, as Captain Edward Ruppelt informed Air Force Chief of Staff Hoyt Vandenberg. Throughout the project's existence, the Air Force collected an incredible number of eyewitness accounts of the phenomenon. Among the witnesses were reliable people, including respected special service officers and scientists. All their testimonies remained unexplained and were deliberately hidden from citizens. But how is this possible? We are all accustomed to considering any news about a suspicious object in the sky as fake. But what if this was just the government's plan? To convince ordinary citizens that all stories about UFOs are made up. When scientists search for life on other planets, we often expect to hear about the discovery of intelligent beings. However, life can be microscopic as well. Even if traces of microorganisms are found on a planet, it would mean that life exists there. Mars is considered a potentially habitable planet. It's an Earth-like planet with a solid surface, ice deposits, and a thin atmosphere. Although it's quite cold, microorganisms are capable of adapting to harsh conditions. Based on these factors, scientists have not ruled out the possibility of life on Mars and are keen to find it. A Martian meteorite has aided them in this quest. In 1996, during its study, scientists made an incredible discovery. They found microscopic fossils resembling bacteria. These microorganisms were rod-shaped and about 100 nanometers in size, which matches nanobacteria and is extremely small for any cellular organisms. For instance, the smallest bacteria of the genus Mycoplasma are around 300 nanometers in size. The news about the potential discovery of extraterrestrial life sparked much debate. Some consider the Martian bacteria to be mineral crystals, while others believe that this discovery indeed proves the existence of extraterrestrial life. Europa is the smallest and brightest of Jupiter's Galilean moons. Scientists have long observed Europa, during which they speculated that an ocean lies beneath the thick ice layer covering the moon's surface. It's quite possible that microorganisms inhabit its waters. For a long time, scientists have tried to prove this and focused on one particular feature of Europa, its red lines. The icy surface of the moon is covered with these red lines, which astronomers began to study. In 1995, Europa was examined in detail thanks to the Galileo probe. However, this did not help explain the nature of the red lines. In 2001, NASA scientist Brad Dalton took on the task of studying this feature. After extensive research, he measured Europa's infrared chemical signature and compared it with samples from Yellowstone National Park. Based on the analysis results, he suggested that the lines on the moon might be red due to bacterial colonies similar to those that color some bodies of water on Earth. So far, it's practically impossible to verify Dalton's hypothesis, and scientists can only speculate that it may be correct. In 2007, scientists discovered the most anomalous phenomenon in the history of astrophysics: fast radio bursts. The first of these, known as the Lorimer burst, was found in the archives of the Australian Parkes Telescope. A fast radio burst is a sudden burst of radio radiation of colossal intensity. Undoubtedly, this anomaly intrigued scientists. Over the course of 5 years, they thoroughly studied archival data and compared it to the Lorimer burst, obtaining some information about the phenomenon. It is known that the first radio burst, lasting less than 5 milliseconds, occurred at 3 degrees from the small Magellanic Cloud. This was a sensation, as astronomers had never before captured anything similar. A few years later, scientists discovered other bursts with similar characteristics and concluded that they all represent a new class of astronomical phenomena. To date, about 20 instances have been identified. The nature of fast radio bursts remains unexplored. Various hypotheses are being published in the media. Among them are suggestions that the bursts demonstrate the activity of extraterrestrial civilizations. On December 27, 1980, an unusual incident occurred in Rendlesham Forest in the English county of Suffolk, considered one of the most significant UFO sightings. On that night, servicemen from the Rendlesham military base noticed strange lights in the forest. Several people decided to investigate what was happening. When they entered the forest, they saw an unusual triangular object hovering over the ground at a height of no more than 3 meters. When one of the soldiers decided to approach it, he experienced strange sensations, as if time had slowed down and space had become viscous. Shortly after this, the military personnel heard a loud noise and witnessed the flying object ascend at an incredible speed, disappearing from sight within a second. The soldiers hurried back to the base to report what they had seen. A few hours later, another group of servicemen went back into the forest, but found nothing unusual. The next day, soldiers returned to the forest. At the site of the night's incident, they noticed a hole about 3 meters in diameter and no more than 1.5 meters deep. Several similar indentations were found nearby in the ground. Attempts were made to investigate the incident, but they led to no conclusions. Some researchers concluded that the soldiers had indeed encountered an extraterrestrial spacecraft, while skeptics considered the event to be a case of mass hallucinations. Crop circles are geoglyphs or images of geometric shapes on the ground. Information about the first such objects appeared as early as 1678 in one of the English pamphlets of that time. However, scientists only became interested in this phenomenon at the end of the 20th century. Journalists, scientists, special service employees, and ufologists started talking about strange geoglyphs. There are many theories about the nature of these images, and some of them are related to extraterrestrial civilizations. But why? The fact is that some circles appeared very quickly, literally overnight, and their scales were impressive. For example, the diameter of the largest circle located in Wiltshire County is 267 meters. The question then arises, how could such large and complex patterns be created in such a short time? Ufologists believe that this is possible in only one case. Circles are traces of the presence of extraterrestrial beings. According to them, when flying saucers descend over the Earth, a mark in the form of a circle is left at that place. Where the circles actually come from is still unknown. Therefore, this phenomenon is considered one of the most mysterious. That's all from me. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to rate it, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell icon. Your engagement is the best reward for me. Thank you for your attention. See you soon. Goodbye.